hoping you're right. But you know, when somebody picks the time.
Is Shirley James with? Oh, I did. You are. You leading us in the invocation? Well, 1 minute. 1 minute meaning 1 minute before you take as much time as you want. We're not going anywhere.
I don't know that he just.
And there's a lot of people who need absolution, not the least of which is the guy sitting in front of you. 1 minute.
Whoever you want.
The least of whom?
You know when you point at somebody, it's the three of them point back.
Sometimes 4.
Yeah, sometimes 4. Yeah, if you got broken thumbs.
I'm not sure what's going on.
Oh. That's when Town Hall used to be on the south end. I was looking at yours.
Hang on 1 minute.
I don't.
Make a note.
I don't know.
Yep,
Kim?
that's it.
Is this right?
All right, let us roll. Shirley, if you would, please lead us in the invocation.
Let us pray. Father God, we come before you tonight with humble hearts and joyful hearts and just happy. And we just thank you for this wonderful opportunity to be here tonight with our town and our town leaders and the residents of our town. And we have so much to be thankful for. And we cannot say thank you enough, and we just give you the praise and the glory. And Father, I ask tonight now, as we go over the agenda items, that you bring our hearts and our minds together in unity as one. We love you for this, and I ask for wisdom, but I also, in asking for wisdom, I ask you to give our leaders the knowledge to understand the wisdom that you give us. Father, we're just so grateful, and tonight I just want to say thank you for keeping our town safe in these storms and just putting your angels all around us and protecting us. So all these blessings I ask tonight in the name of the Holy One, the precious one, the beautiful, the most powerful, the name of Jesus. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, welcome everybody. Good audience for those here and those watching at home or wherever on live stream. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
On the town business. Before I adopt the agenda, there have been some changes in addition and an omission. We are dropping item 6B, which is the CUP for a 2-unit detached residential. We aren't, but they're pulling this. Let me be clear about that.
6B?
Right, 6B. And we're adding to closed session not just the real estate and attorney-client matter, but a personnel matter. So that's 9A. Given that, I make a motion to adopt the agenda. No.
Before we do, tonight we have applications for committees. I have a huge concern about this. I'm going to address it first. Last month we had applicants for the Ad Hoc Business Development Committee that came in all the way up to the day of us voting, and we allowed that to go through. Today we had up to 2 applicants that had applied up to the day of that are not on this list. So it's my recommendation that if we're going to be consistent and fair to our residents who work hard for these committees, is that we wait to vote on this, add those 2 new names, and then go from there.
You looking for a motion?
Yep.
Make it.
I'd like for a motion to make that happen.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, Joe Dan.
And
Thank you.
just a comment, I agree with Joe Dan. It gets a little confusing. Are we opening a window and closing a window for the applicants? How are we doing that?
It stays open until I send out the agenda packets a week in advance, but I'm not familiar with the applicants that we put on the agenda last time, the day of, because we did have one, but we did not include it on the agenda. So I'm not clear on.
On non-agenda, can we talk about possibly just making it run all the way to the day of? That way, consistency, we always have the same thing.
But will that give you guys time to review the application?
No.
I review it every single day.
If that's the wish of council.
We could talk about it.
Okay.
Wait, yeah.
Or-
Give it
or
some
at the
thought,
workshop.
maybe during, if we recess for non-agenda. Anything else on the adoption? I'll make a motion now at that time. Make a motion to adopt the agenda excluding item 6B and adding a personnel matter to closed session.
May I ask one question? Were y'all also removing 7A? I wasn't certain what the motion,
Yes.
okay.
So we're striking that too?
Okay. Yeah, that wasn't clear, but that makes sense given what you just said.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay, let me restate. Make a motion to adopt the agenda excluding item 6B, excluding 7A, and adding a personnel matter to closed session. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Anything on the consent? Joe, Dan?
Not this time, I'm okay.
Anybody else? Yeah, the only one I had, and Debbie's not here, but the, hope she gets well soon. The $103,000 for the 10 pay stations and 77 meters to the contractor. Is there a provision that if one of those is inoperable, that we don't pay, or is it you pay regardless of the operational status of those pay stations and meters?
There was an assessment of our equipment after the contract was in place. All of this is for the replacement of equipment that has run its lifespan, and I think it was about a month ago Lanier came and gave you an update, but this is their recommendation on what needs to happen this year, and we have a plan for them that we can actually budget for. Unfortunately, we didn't have that foresight with SB Plus, but hopefully we have a little more foresight with Lanier where we can foresee what types of repairs, replacements are coming up in the future years. I don't know if that answered your question.
It basically does. I'm just looking at it from a perspective of trying to quantify lost revenue as a result of inoperable meters, for instance. And then certainly common sense would say in the off season when you're not using them for revenue collection, pull them and ops check them.
Right. From my experience, Lanier's doing a really good job of going in and managing those meters and pay stations and communicating back to us and letting them know the status of that equipment. So I think we do have a solid plan moving forward. We're just a little behind the curve switching over from SB Plus to Lanier.
Okay. And if revenue is a reflection of efficiency, then the projections look pretty good when they briefed us.
Yes, sir.
In terms of the meeting. Okay, with that, I make a motion to adopt the consent agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Brenda, I think we got on to
No, actually,
special events, or we get?
Tim gets it.
So you
He's now taking over.
Sorry to disappoint everybody expecting Brenda. So we're currently transitioning special events coordinator over through Parks and Rec. So you'll be seeing me more often. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of our October and November events. Oops. This weekend we have our second annual Beach, Bacon, and Beer Festival at the lake. That's this Saturday. Also this month, and this is a whole weekend-long event, on the 18th is our Surf Fishing Challenge. Let's see. And also, of course, we do have the Fire Department Barbecue on Saturday the 26th, and that does sell out super fast, as I find out every year. November, our bike rodeo is on the 2nd at Town Hall and also the Rec Center. The Neon Bike Brigade is Saturday the 9th at the lake. And we do have one event, I know it says approved events on here. It's a fundraiser for the Bahamas. This is Chief Griffin's brainchild, so if Chief wants to say a few words about the fundraiser for the Bahamas, we need to get council approval on that event.
Mayor, Council, thanks for the opportunity to speak on this tonight. Actually, it wasn't my brainchild. I appreciate the,
Oh.
I mean, it makes me look good when you say that. But no, in the audience tonight, I have Patrick with Crown Beach Bar Club. I'm sorry. Yeah, Patrick, and then Charlie, Captain Charlie. Most people know Captain Charlie. Captain Charlie actually owns a house in Hopetown, Bahamas. And history there's been a lot between the two islands, and a lot of residents go there. Their fire department lost all their equipment, lost their fire truck. The fire truck they actually were using up till recently was donated from Curry Beach Fire way back in the day to them. So they approached me about doing something to raise some money, kind of fire department to fire department, island to island, everybody coming together and doing this. So we put together a little event. It's going to be at the Sea Witch parking lot during the day on November 23rd from 1 to 5. We're asking to just close the parking lot. We're going to have fire trucks, some fire prevention stuff going on. A little food vendors will be there. It'll be local restaurants up from the island area doing food tents, and some bands have donated their time. And we're just going to try to raise money. And at 5, we're going to move over into the Sea Witch, where there's going to be another band, and the Crown Beach Bar Club's going to do a few things to help 50/50s, different things like that. And we're going to take the money raised, and we're working on getting equipment donated. They are getting equipment donated from other places also, but it's expensive to get this equipment sent over. So this money is going to go for trying to get equipment over there. It's going to go for needs that we think they might need. And we've been in contact with their fire chief and their liaison to the fire department there. And we're kind of excited about it. So kind of short and sweet. But what we are asking is, it is off-season. The parking lot's not being utilized for paid parking anymore. There's no events that weekend. So we thought maybe it'd be good for the locals and their family and anybody wants to come. But just try to make it a fun day with fire trucks and maybe some bouncy houses and some food and some music, and help give back to another island.
I think conceptually it sounds great, just maybe schematic of what this will look like and what, in terms of any disruptions to traffic and what, if police are, is anything else you can think of?
Everything's all we're gonna do is close off the Sea Witch parking lot. Everything will be inside the parking lot, and at 5 o'clock, we'll move the fire trucks out, and the food vendor tents will leave, and the parking lot will be back open that night so people can park and go to Sea Witch or the boardwalk or whatever.
Okay. Just something we can slap on the website just by means of notification.
And Chief, I don't know if you know this or not, there's another group of young ladies, some of the queens around town, they're doing fundraiser for a orphanage in the Bahamas, and they were collecting supplies, and they were having issues with the logistics as well. And I know they're going to be at the Beach Bacon Beer Festival. So I didn't know if maybe you could get in touch with Greg Reynolds, or Captain Charlie, you guys. I mean, so they're trying to figure out how to get stuff over there too. So maybe if you all do it together, it might be a little bit easier. I can give you the phone, but Greg knows their contact.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thanks, Chief.
Yes, sir.
And finally, we have our Christmas by the Sea light up, Saturday the 30th at the boardwalk. And again, this year we'll be featuring artistry and jazz, which I think was a big hit last year.
Count?
Any questions for me about events? Happy to answer.
Good job, Tim.
Thank you.
Good job,
Thanks,
Tim.
Tim.
Look forward to working with you.
I actually do have a question,
ahead.
since you brought up the light up.
ma'am.
Are you guys doing that in conjunction with the lake light up this year? The lake and the boardwalk? You know what I'm talking about?
I do, and I think that we were going to separate those events. We were going to not do ours in conjunction with the lake light.
So are they doing Saturday night too, or do you know?
They do Friday night.
Friday, and then
that's
you'll
why
be
we-
Saturday, okay.
Friday, we'll light up, they'll have a big event at the lake, usually around 7, I believe. And then on Saturday, we'll have our light up at the boardwalk, we'll have music.
And what are we doing about decorating all the coves back in the back? Do we have businesses that have
Yeah,
volunteered? to do
Aaron and
that,
I
or
are working on
organizations?
getting sponsors.
Okay.
We are.
Meeting Friday, okay.
So maybe if we can get an update next month then, just for the public, on what they are doing on Friday, just so
Absolutely.
everybody will know what time to be there.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Right.
Next up, the interim town manager at Department. Over, under? Everything is a bet.
What's the over-under?
9:15, 9:30?
Might drag it till 11.
Mayor, Council, a few updates for you. Hurricane Dorian, we did just get an announcement that there will be federal funding for New Hanover County, so that's a good thing for us. We have been going through the efforts to collect all the information, so we have been moving forward as if it was a funded storm from day one. So the debris collection is still going on. It's a little difficult to see, maybe a little easier up on the screen. I'm looking at my screen, but we are in zone 4 right now, finishing cleanup for debris pickup. All those costs are being entered into our software, and we're hoping that we can, everything that we had from this storm, we had entered on paper forms by our folks in the field. We're hoping to make that completely automated where they can enter it in on their smartphones and it go directly into our software, which would be very innovative for even some of the larger communities if we could get that working. So we've got our staff working really hard on that. The paper forms does take a long time to transition into our software program, so it's something that we're still working on. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I've had a handful of residents in some of the other zones say that as they're getting rid of trees and limbs, that they miss those cutoff points. Can we either be a little more lenient with them or do another quick sweep to grab some of the, like, I know on land there's a huge tree that was literally chopped up. That's just for,
So we did put out the requirements, and we're trying to get the message out that this should be for hurricane debris only, but we do a monthly pickup. So if you have your regular monthly pickup and you want to put out for that pickup, but once we go through, we have to cut it off at a certain point. So we're trying to go through, get everybody done with the hurricane debris, and get back on our monthly pickup because we did not bring in a separate contractor to accommodate additional loads for the debris. We did activate our site on the Montse property and went through those channels to get that approved. But this is our regular crews that are doing this. So they're doing this on top of all their other duties. So they're doing the best they can with those resources. And there was quite a bit of debris that over what we're used to picking up. So the next slide here is something I don't think I've briefed council on. This is our ADA transition plan. It's something that the DOT, I just learned about, it's actually last summer, and we've been working to put in place. We've got multiple staff members working on this from fire department, basically every department, fire department, building, HR, police department, everybody's pitching in. But we're basically assessing all of our public infrastructure and facilities on the status of ADA. And what we're finding, we are doing we've improved a lot of our facilities. In fact, we're doing one right now up front to make it more ADA accessible. And a lot of our utilities facilities in the community have been brought up. So we're looking pretty good for this study. I don't have a timeline for it being complete because it's basically an unfunded mandate. We're doing it all in-house. But the DOT just wants to see that we're making improvements. This will help. We've been moving forward with the grant money with the DOT, but showing them and communicating with them that we're completing this plan allows us to continue our relationship to get grant money from DOT. So that's something I just wanted you to be aware of, that staff's working on a little bit above and beyond what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. Another thing, I think I might have confused you last time because this is a little confusing, but I talked about the FEMA emergency power facility inspections that were occurring. This is a program that New Hanover County Emergency Management brought to us, and it is funded and supported by the Army Corps of Engineers. They bring folks in and assess our facilities and infrastructure and help us create connections for generators, so we can get generators put in place in an event of emergency. So if we have a hurricane, we have the connections in place, and they will actually bring in, they will already identify what our critical infrastructure is. They will bring in all the generators that we need and help us get those in place in a storm event. So that's going to save the town a ton of money by doing these inspections. I've got our building inspector, Daryl Johnson, has been leading this. He has been through 7 facilities. They've been completed and approved. So what that means is they will go in and make those connections where you can quickly just go in and connect a generator from Army Corps of Engineers. So this is a great program. We're going to continue it. We got 25 more facilities that they're going to look at. So Hamlet Ocean Rescue, we have, I got a picture on here. It shows the demolition started. We have demolished it's completely gone now, the bathrooms down there. So we do have our initial meeting next Tuesday with the contractor. We will be coming back at your workshop for the awarding the contract and budget amendment. And November, we should have this is a design build, so once they move forward, their architect will start working on the design, and then December construction documents. And December is also, the reason we have to do a budget amendment is there's also a loan approval process. So once we get the loan approval, then my hope is we can do that and before they even start billing, and we can get that in place in December, the loan in place, and we can reimburse the money back to the fund balance, and you don't see an impact there. So I'm hoping there's a minimal time. The other reason we're doing that way is because we don't want to wait for the loan. We want to go ahead and move forward so we can get this project underway and done as quick as possible. Our original goal was to have it done at the end of April to start the season, and when we put the RFQ out, we got very minimal response, and we had to submit it back. When I called up all the contractors that I was hoping that would submit, the timeline was just too tight for them. There were certain aspects of it that they couldn't make work that they were hoping to make work. So that was one of the criteria. Mid-June was the best date we received. So I've been talking to the fire chief on an interim plan for our ocean rescue folks for the first part of the summer, but we're hoping to be in there by mid-June.
So that then would point back to the purchase of the property on the boardwalk as a contingency for delays that now we see with with moving ocean rescue, since they'll be homeless barring that.
They will be. So we talked about that property. There's a lot of things that he can house at he being the fire chief, house at the fire department. And there's a few other options we can. We might even be able to stage a little bit there on site. So there's some things that we'll work through, but that's a good. That property is.
Among other uses, but
Yes, sir. That's
So Ed, does that mean that you'll have to close that whole parking lot for May and some of June?
As well as April.
We are.
Right.
So on October 15th, we'll come in and meet with the contractor and talk about some of those things. Our hope is that by that point, we can at least open up some of the parking. And the construction can be isolated to a portion of the site, and we can safely open up.
But there'll be a lot blocked off probably, a portion of it.
Portion of it we're hoping to have open for this throughout the season, and then by mid-June have the entire lot back open again. Yes, ma'am. It's a busy slide, but the thing that the takeaway from this slide is Brian Stanberry's been working our public works director has been working very hard on this, and basically the town is approved to move forward on improving all these pedestrian facilities that you council has been working so hard to get as well. So he's moving forward on all the equipment has been delivered, crosswalks, collapsible bollards will be going in, the flashing signals, all that will be going in, starting to go in. You'll see it as early as this week. You'll see those changes at all those intersections.
How about Ocean? Is that on there?
Yes. Yes, that's on there.
Ed, can we get this out on our website so people know these changes are coming?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We can do that.
Maybe
Good job,
Brian.
Brian.
can
Brian and
Facebook
team,
Live it.
great work. This is persistence. Thank you.
Maybe a good Facebook Live
Jeremy,
from
too,
Brian.
you were taking my RFIs. Thanks.
Okay. Another DOT update is DOT did recommend South Lake Park be lowered to 25 miles per hour, which was from 35, basically from the lake there going south to towards Curie Beach. We would still need direction from town council, but if we want to move forward that, you would need to adopt a resolution of support, and then we would need to change that in our ordinance to make it official. We could, if that's the direction you want to move forward in, we will move forward in that
Do
direction.
you take it now, or do you
Well,
need it?
Can we make a motion now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to draft
We,
resolution.
we will go ahead and put that on your next agenda to have the resolution and ordinance in front of you.
Ed, what was the request to DOT on speed limits for North Lake Park, Ocean, and Dow? What did we ask them for?
So North Lake Park was going from down to 35 or 25, sorry, and that was denied. Ocean Boulevard also going down to 25, and Dow Road. Jeremy, can you help me on that one? That was going down to 45.
No.
Those were all
Ocean-
denied.
Ocean was the one that was most interesting to me. What, we asked to reduce it to 25, and they said no?
They do assessments of those streets. I know they look at what speed traffic is flowing on those streets, and I know that's one of the data points they look at, and the average speed. So the average speeds on that South Lake Park was just below 35, and it was at 35. So they were already traveling that speed. They were traveling at a faster rate on Ocean, and DOT didn't see a safety concern, so they denied that request.
And I guess what I'm hearing from our residents is the safety concern is the amount of pedestrians and people that are in that Ocean Boulevard area. DOT looks at the traffic and the vehicles and the speed, and what we're looking at is the pedestrians. So of those three, I would continue to want to see us pushing for Ocean.
We can go back and tell them if there's a way we can look at that safety concern a little closer.
So I'm wondering, Ed, I mean, did we ask for 25, or Ocean changes from, what is it, 45 to 35? Maybe we could just ask for the whole street to be 35. Maybe that would be a step in the right direction.
We can ask if there's any way to lower that.
Maybe 25 was too much for them, is what I'm thinking.
All right, we'll focus on Ocean and
Baby
see if we can't
steps.
get baby steps on
Compromise.
Ocean.
Compromise.
Yeah, just pointing out the amount of pedestrians that are using that. I don't see as many pedestrians on Dow Road, and on North Lake Park, we at least have some sidewalks, but on Ocean, it's just,
Right, I agree.
it's pretty rough.
I'm afraid just asking for 25 might have been a lot for them to take. Maybe if we just asked for it to be one speed limit, 35 down the
Right. Well, I live on Ocean, and so I know what you're talking about. I walk twice a day, and I haven't been here yet, but I give them plenty of room. But originally, they had 55 at the end of Ocean, right before it gets there, and then they moved it down to 45. That has helped a lot, but I think a lot of people are anticipating
that they can be at 45, start at 45 as soon as they get on Ocean. So moving it down to 35 certainly would be helpful from both ends. Somebody doing 45, they don't want to slow down to 35, and it takes them a while to do that. But I think that would be helpful.
We'll go back and see if they can do 35 or 40 even, a
Let's
little
do
bit.
35 the
And
whole
we
way.
might want to put the sign with the flashing about how fast you're going, because I
True.
often see cars that are going pretty quick down through there. And it's worse in the morning when they're going to work.
I mean, and you know, thinking about that crosswalk you're getting ready to put up, the signal, would they even have time to slow down at 45
Yeah.
when you're
Yeah,
coming up on that?
Yeah, that's a little bit of a concern. Plus, when you're approaching that crosswalk, there's a lot of foliage. You can't see them until they're in the road. Because I slow down when I'm going that way, and I've had a few bikes that think they're going to stop, and they just pull right out. It scares the crap out of me. So I've got my foot on my brake when I get near that place.
Well, that's a good point. That crosswalk might change some of those patterns of traffic on there, and
Yeah.
once
Yeah, it
we
might,
get that
but
in place,
I think you need to
we
clear
can
out
get
some of
them.
that
Thanks,
foliage as well. You can't see anything. You can't see anybody on the walkway until you're at the road. They're on the road by the time you see them. You can't see them approaching.
So the vision clearance there at the
Vision
path
clearance is awful.
okay.
That's in there right away too, so I suppose we'd have to. And just for clarification, the speed reduction was, or the request, pre-decisional without any public
Apologize,
input or
Dave.
resolution or Curie Beach coordination was 35 from Lake Park, on Dow, from Lake Park to Harper at the crosswalk. But they don't recommend that. That's what I just read, okay.
Right.
And the second thing, to Steve's point, you know, putting it on the website, is there a rendering to show where the actual encroachments will be and the modifications? In other words, a picture.
We do. It's not the one I have on here is poor quality, but we can put a
Something we can share as well.
we can put a little bit better picture, a little more detail that really shows what's going on. You can't really tell on this one, but we can do a little better on the website.
Might be the great time to have Brian do a how-to video on all those locations, what's going on, introduce himself, let
good on
people know the hard work he's putting in.
I know the new lights. I've seen the new lights on the sign at the crosswalk at Good Hops, and that's very effective.
Good.
It looks more like it'll make people stop because it looks more like the railroad crossing lights. So I think it'll be effective.
All right, I'm going.
I still have my concerns crossing that.
Another positive for the town, Canal Drive stormwater check valves continue to come in and continue to be implemented. We have had multiple delivered, which is your top bullet there. And then our staff has been working to install these as they're coming in. So your second bullet shows where they have just finished installation. And they're working through, obviously, the tide schedule to get those done. Just pictures there of our guys working to get that implemented. So working hard.
And Ed, we are doing all 18.
Yes, ma'am. So it was a 5-year plan. We're going to get it done in 2, 3. Military Ocean Terminal, Sunny Point. So we did get the results back from the lab analysis and came back below parameters, which is the first time since 2013 when we were reeled back in with all of our public works activities out on the Matsu property. So that is phenomenal news. I am still working with the state. I'm trying to get a meeting scheduled with them to find out what type of letter they're going to give us. I already know that they're going to tell us, the letter is going to say that before they give us a letter with no restrictions, we have to wait a year. So they're not going to give us a clean bill to go back to Matsu, but they will. But I'm trying to figure out what type of letter they will give us, and then go back to Matsu and see if, see how far they'll let us move forward. So
Maybe another way to do that is, what would Matsu accept? How would they like it written so that they'd view it favorable at the 2-star level of command, which is next? We know they're in
restrictions.
favor.
Right.
We know they're in favor, but they're not the final check.
Right. So we'll try to get the most favorable letter possible. It will still have some restrictions until we get that full year. We know Matsu wants no restrictions. So, but this is a huge step that we got this far, and we have this lab analysis. Any questions on this?
Who from the state are you trying to get in contact with?
I've got, our staff's not having trouble getting in contact with them. We just want to sit down with them and talk about what we want to see in that letter. I've got the names in my desk. I don't have them with me. So.
Sometimes it's how they interpret it, they being the Army.
Or if we have people we know in the state that can help facilitate that meeting better.
A little cleaner.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ed, that's great.
Thanks.
Any questions on that before I keep going? So October workshop, we brought you a draft harbor ordinance. It was the way we're leaning for the harbor. It still needed some work. We're going to bring that back to you at your October 22nd, 9 a.m. workshop. Also, we've given you some staff recommendations for Freeman Park. We're putting those in code format and in our budget schedule for you to review at the October 22nd workshop, and that'll be for official adoption at the November 12th meeting, so we can go ahead and move forward with our plans for Freeman Park and parking for the new annual year. And then, as I talked about earlier, we also had the contract for design build for your approval at that workshop.
Did you say that's a morning workshop?
Yes, ma'am, 9 a.m. on the October 22nd. October 22nd, 9 a.m. It's a Tuesday.
I won't be here for that.
You're going to not be here? Okay. Upcoming, you do have 3 conditional use permits that planning and zoning will be hearing this week, Thursday night. So they're looking at a plan unit development at 1012 South Lake Park Boulevard. There is a 2-unit plan unit development off of 406 Harper, and then a conditional use permit for a club to operate an eating and drinking establishment at the Caroline Beach Marina and Yacht Club, formerly Joyner Marina. So you'll see those November 12th. Technical Review Committee will also be reviewing several things this month. We will do a final review of the Freeman Park and parking proposal that we've already done that, but we'll go through that one more time with all our staff the day before you see it. We did give you a draft of driving on some limited parameters for driving on the concrete portions of the boardwalk. So we are looking at how all the nuances with that, as we discussed, in the event that a contractor needs to get up there for construction, making some very limited allowances, as we discussed at the last workshop. So we'll be fine-tuning that at TRC. The sign ordinance is something that we've been working on with planning and our attorney for quite a few months now, but we're trying to get that moving forward so we're in compliance with state and federal law. And P&Z recommended code, reviewed parking lots for commercial. There's allowance in our central business district as looking at just allowances for public parking lots, municipal lots only.
Yeah, I had a question for you.
Sure, I'll get
On
back.
the proposed Freeman Park changes that will be coming to the workshop in October, Are you going to be looking for action in October, or are you making a presentation for recommendations that then go to a November public hearing, or?
Typically, for the design build, I'm going to be
No,
looking for
I'm-
action for
this one-
the.
The only one I was asking about was Freeman Park.
For Freeman Park, I just want to hopefully get your head shaking yes or no, and get you comfortable, or giving staff direction if there's changes we need to make, and make those final changes and recommendations. They really need to be in place by November 12th, no later, because we will have to get the parking program up
So
and
when
running.
you say in place by November 12th, is that assuming then there would be a hearing at council on November?
Yes,
for
sir.
final
We would
action
need
on those changes?
a hearing to adopt those changes and get our ordinance changed. Know how our passes, what type of passes we need to be looking at for developing for the coming season.
Okay.
All right. Let's see. Watershed plan, we talked to you a little bit about this. I didn't want it to drop off your radar, but this is a plan we're working with council government on, and we are doing some site assessment and looking at working with them on prioritization of work area this month, identifying goals, benchmarks, implementation schedules in November, and hopefully plan completion in February. So that's still going on behind the scenes, and we'll have some more opportunities for public comment as well.
Hey, Ed, I assume that's tied to the 5 stormwater priorities that we've been getting updates on, and that some of which have engineering designs and permits at least being pursued. Is that accurate?
It will be, in the fact that this is the one that Tracy Scrable came and talked to you about. So it's a very well outlined plan that the state has done, and it will open us up for some significant funding opportunities through the state once we have that plan in place, which will go back to those 5 priority areas. And our hope is that once we get this plan in place, it makes the town look a little better, gives us another planning document, but it also helps us score much higher on grant applications that we're putting through Jerry Hare and our other staff members.
So, you know, we reached out to, Dale's right there, Senator Peterson's office to ask about the how and the to whom on the federal funds that went to the state back in August, the resiliency funds, pre-disaster mitigation that's directly linked to infrastructure. His exec said, okay, that's a good question, don't know, but will let us know exactly what the clearinghouse is going to be, the approval process, and whether it goes to county or municipality. And having some of these projects already priced out and ready to go looks good. So I'm going back to the 5 stormwater. So Dale and I will meet with him at some point in time at his convenience to get a little bit, flesh this out a little more.
Having all that engineering design really helps with those applications, as you said. That is a huge benefit. So we are stepping the right direction with that. Next slide here, I have the land use plan. So we have been having multiple meetings with the committee, and right now our consultant staff is working to make those last few recommended changes to the plan and updates to the land classification map. We will be getting that back to the committee hopefully by the end of the week, and our goal would be either November, maybe either November and December P&Z, depending on that review, how long they're going to take to review it. And so I think the earliest you would see it at council would be January for adoption.
Are we still possibly looking at a joint meeting with planning and zoning to look at this?
We could, I don't think we had that in the plan, but we could always
I
do
would
that.
strongly recommend it.
It was-
We have,
Okay.
before it goes to P and Z for their action, that we would meet with council and P and Z together to kind of review it and see, to make sure P and Z, we understand what P and Z is going to be feeling, and that council gets a chance to help P and Z understand what the direction of council is. And then I guess my other question is, Ed, you have on here potentially coming in January to town council. That would be the first full meeting of a newly elected and sworn-in council. And I'd be concerned that the most important document we were looking at for a 10-year plan is the first thing that's going to be looked at. I mean, does that really give potentially 3 new council members a chance to review that and understand it?
So maybe, and we could bump back and have that P and Z and council meeting in January, is that?
I'm
Is
just
that-
throwing that out there.
council.
I'm just throwing that out there for council and community to understand.
I
mean,
think
it's
if
a
Okay.
we
pretty
want it to get
significant
approved, we're
document.
gonna have to probably
Okay, we can
iron
make that
that
work.
out together. And I
And
agree
get-
with
and
you,
get
that
them
would
up
be a
to
tough
speed.
January meeting.
Well, it's the first action that a new council would take is a pretty significant document. To not have time to go through it and get educated on it and digest it, I would think in fairness to potentially three new people up here, that would be important.
Coastal Resource Commission doesn't establish a red line on adoption either, so
Yep.
it's not like
Well, let's don't rush
we're
it.
not up against the clock.
Okay, we'll make those modifications, and thank you for that. I also want to put some other community outreach. There is the annual North Carolina Planning Conference. This year it's in Wilmington. We don't get to always go or participate, but I will be presenting on the Matsu Joint Land Use Study at the conference. Jeremy will be presenting on coastal resiliency at the conference. Also want to put that tomorrow, Miles Murphy, our planner, will be talking to the middle school about planning challenges in coastal communities like Carolina Beach. Also put on here, we are working hard to get more classes in Carolina Beach, and there's a lot of benefit to bringing these folks in the area. We had the International Code Council come here and gave a permitting class, phenomenal training. We get, a lot of times we'll get free seats by having them come here, and it's just great exposure. It brings a lot of, we had people from Colorado and Michigan in this class a couple weeks ago. We also had the FBI model leadership training with the police department, and we had people all up and down the East Coast as far away as Maine coming to that class, and we get a lot of free training for our staff by having it here. I'm also working with staff. I'm hoping that we can get the School of Government at UNC to come and give some classes here where we can get some quality training, and saves us a lot of travel and training money, and it brings all these people, puts Carolina Beach on the map. So it's a great thing for a win-win for everybody.
It's great, good job. Awesome.
And I think that's the end. I did have, I had all that for community outreach. I wanted to turn it over, Mr. Mayor, Council, to, I didn't put some of the great things that the fire department did, and they want to talk about some of the initiatives coming up because I wanted to let Chief Griffin talk quickly about that, if I could turn it over to him.
Yeah, Ed, I appreciate that. The context is the discussion back and forth on a controlled burn. So this is good. I know very little about it, so I appreciate the education that's forthcoming.
Mayor, Council, I want to start off with just talking a little bit about Fire Prevention Week is this week throughout the nation. A couple of things that the fire department's doing. One is, I don't know if you saw the sign that's by the Snow's Cut crossing, but we actually worked with Jeremy and got them to put a fire prevention message on that sign. It's going to be up all week. One of the things that we're kind of proud of this year, in the past, when we go out to the elementary school, we'll be out there tomorrow doing 400 and some kids, like 450, I think. We did close to 30 Monday. So we reach close to 500 kids just on the island every year. And in the past, we've been working on a few changes. And one is, and we're still got some of these that we're kind of burning through, but we always were giving out the plastic bags. They're cheap and quick and easy. But this year, we took the opportunity to work with a local vendor and get a reusable bag, a shopping bag, that actually has our logo and then several fire prevention messages on it, including a rip current message about swim near guards. So this is something that instead of the bag getting thrown away, the parents can have and use. And then, of course, we stuff it with a few goodies, and I'll put you guys a bag up there that you can have to take home with you.
You're not trying to bribe us for a vote on something, are you?
No, not yet.
It's budget.
I thought it was before. I liked my bag.
Takes more than a
Later.
Frisbee and a bag, I think. But Ed asked me also to do an update on the lifeguards. Typically, Labor Day weekend, the guards, we end the season, and then we do mainly patrolling based off the weather and the rip currents. But this year has been a little bit unseasonably warm. We've had to keep guards out on the beach. We look at the October 1st windows usually when we try to terminate the seasonal employment. This year we've had exceptionally bad rips, if you've noticed, all around us. Outer Banks, Curry Beach has had some true struggles. At the same time they were having their drownings that day, we were working on multiple rescues, transported a couple people to the hospital that were near drownings, and we chose to keep the guards on, and I've got them on through this weekend, and then we're going to evaluate the weather. And when I say I got them on, it's basically they're a small group that's in a response mode in a vehicle. You know, it's a struggle when they go back to school, and because they're seasonal this time of year, they know that any week is their end, they're finding winter jobs and things. So I've managed to keep a small group on, and on the weekends, we may have 6 or 8, and they'll be in 2 pickups. It's not the ideal, but it's still better than not having guards out. The fire guys, it still puts all the load back on them, and the challenge we have with that is they could be on another call. You know, they could be on a medical call, a fire call, whatever, and then a beach call comes in. So right now, I just wanted council to be aware that we're going to hold those guards another week or two, and just to ensure that we're doing everything we can until the rip currents lay down. And the weather is starting to change for the good. We're seeing the beach population this week drop way down. One thing that's a consideration for the future we'll talk about during budget time is that there's more kids in year-round schools now around the state, and we're seeing that they get their break right around the 1st of October, 2-week break, whatever it is. So we do see a little influx right around the 1st of October, a lot of seasonal or year-round students coming in. And then a lot of your homeschool kids, they pick the shoulder seasons, parents do. And so we are seeing a lot, you know, used to we didn't see a lot of kids on the beach after Labor Day. We are still in the middle of the week seeing a lot of kids running around the beach playing and enjoying themselves. So we want to make sure that we're providing that protection as long as the water's in good condition.
Your head guard retired this year, right? Or at least our ocean rescue
That's correct.
person did. So how are we coming on job description? We talked about that earlier. Job description, roles, filling that, you know, multitasking.
Yes, sir. We have extended a job offer to a new candidate, and our goal is to bring that candidate to you probably the next workshop as an introduction.
Okay.
Once everything's finalized.
Chief,
Yes, sir.
I had a question about the last slide for Fire Safety Week.
Yeah.
The things that you're doing with the kids, and I love the fact that you're putting on the billboard. However, sometimes it's always a great reminder to parents and adults on things to be aware of. It'd be awesome if you just did a quick 5-minute video and threw it up on Facebook, so that way parents could share and they, oh shit, that's right, check your fire alarms, do this, do that. So I'm super glad we're doing it for the kids as well, but I definitely think it also helps a friendly reminder to the parents.
Yeah, we could definitely put something out. And this year we have a really cool show we're doing for the kids. It's really interactive. We got a lot of guys involved, and we've got music, and we're excited about tomorrow at the school.
Or take photos, put it online.
Thank you for feedback. Next, they had asked me to have, there's been some emails being exchanged about some trainings coming up. It's not something that we've kept under the rug. We just physically have not got to the point that we were in a position to discuss it. And this week, we finalized all the paperwork with the property owner, and they got their paperwork finalized. And so we're prepared to move forward with doing some training. So I've got about 3 slides, and I think when we get to the end of it, I'll answer most of your questions, but at the end, definitely I want to hear feedback from council, because I did hear your concerns via the emails that we received. But the house is located on Cape Fear Boulevard, and everybody's pretty familiar with the large white structure. The person bought it. They're going to be demolishing it and redoing the land there. So it was an opportunity. Anytime we get an opportunity for a large building, we try to do training in it. So the training schedule we've got pushed out right now is from October through November 15th window. We'll be doing some drills out there, so residents will see some activity with fire trucks out there. All this activity will be no live fire, no real smoke. It's just us out doing dry drills. We do have smoke machines we can use to do some artificial smoke. We are working with the state to do a burn in the college on November 16th, and that'll be a live fire exercise. Just a quick snapshot of the house and why it's important to us is every house that we're seeing being built on the island today is extremely large, multiple stories. We just put on 9 brand new firefighters in the last 6 months. So getting a house that we can actually push lines up stairwells, tight stairwells, winding stairwells is huge for us. So it's kind of important to us to get a building like this. To answer some of the questions about what's going on, first, a little background about live fire training. For most departments, it is a rare opportunity for our staff to get a chance to sharpen their skills in not just a dry environment. When I mean dry, just pulling lines in a non-smoker fire environment, but to be able to do that in a controlled live fire atmosphere. The training will be conducted, or what we try to do is on a case-by-case. We get a lot of opportunities to burn houses on the island, and we turn probably 98% of them we turn down. Some of them we don't even get to train in because of either the condition of them or it's a short timetable before they're actually going to be bulldozed or removed. So some of the factors we look at is proximity to other structures, time of the year, material it's built out of. An older home can have asbestos in it, so we don't burn those. Actually, state won't let us burn them without doing an asbestos removal. So a lot of times houses that's getting demolished are older and have reasons why we can't do this type training. Over the last several years, we've done several live burns Carolina Beach Fire has on the island. The last one we did do in recent history is 2017 on Snapper Lane. We burned a house there. New Hanover County just burned one September 28th, just a week ago. Right before that, we burned one on Carolina Beach Road. I helped them with a training exercise out there. It was a 2-story house with a full basement, very large structure. It was kind of similar to what we're dealing with here. So to answer other questions, who's going to do it, what background do they have? So all the training will be done by myself. I'll be the lead instructor on it. I've been a live burn certified instructor for the state of North Carolina since 2000. During that time, I've done numerous burns all over North Carolina, from residential, commercial. I've even burnt 2 hotels in Southern Pines and Aberdeen district, Holiday Inn and I think it was a Comfort Inn. So we've done some very large structures in municipal districts. For this burn, we'll be using a total of 12 certified instructors. The size of it, we have to follow requirements of what it takes to burn. So the training is conducted with the community college. They are the sponsor of it. They're actually paying the instructors to be there. They do carry their liability, along with the fire department has training liability that we carry for all exercises. We'll follow what's called NFPA 1403, which is a live standard for burns. That is a standard that tells us how we burn and how we can't burn. And then, of course, the North Carolina State Fire Marshal's Office is who I'm certified through. They have training standards, and we have to follow those. How we've handled it in the past and how we'll handle this one is that we will get an informational flyer out to everybody that surrounds that house within a 1 block radius. We notify them of the training that's going to be going on for the next 30 days, which is the activity. You'll see fire trucks and firemen. Some of these activities will be during the day. Some of them will be in the evening for our volunteers that train in off work hours. We won't be using any real smoke or fire like we said earlier. The other notification that the residents will get around there is that on that November 16th date, we will be conducting the live burn. There will be smoke and fire, obviously, when you conduct a live burn. Those are 2 factors that come out of it. So during that burn, we do have to shut down a little bit of the road, and what we're going to be doing is shutting down 6th Street between Cape Fear and Charlotte. There's one resident has a driveway there. We would leave that 1 lane open for them to come and go as they needed. So no residents will be blocked from leaving or going from their residence. Everything else will be conducted on the property itself. All notifications that will be done initially, I'll be personally going around and posting these and answering questions or talking with residents about concerns. And then, of course, my personal the town cell phone and my email will be on that flyer for them to follow up in case we don't have a face-to-face. So the day of the burn, the way that happens is we methodically work through the house. We start on a high level and work down, and we do 1 room at a time. We burn, and we put the fire out, and we'll light the room a couple of times, and the students rotate through so everybody gets a chance to actually extinguish a fire. We work our way through the house, work our way down, and basically methodically burn the house, the contents of the inside up. So we can't have anything in the house. There can't be furniture, carpet. It'll be just the raw material of the house, and we can only use hay and straw. We're not allowed anymore to throw diesel fuel or anything like they used to do in the day. So everything is Class A materials. So we can't take a couch or other material that is or treated wood, anything like that. Only thing that would be is what's still built and attached to the house is allowed to stay in there. So as we conduct the burn, we have to look at the smoke and the weather. So when people ask, am I going to be smoked out, that's a tough question to answer. Typically what we see, because we're lighting fires and smoke is heated, the smoke goes up. It doesn't typically lay. If the atmosphere makes it lay, then we'll judge that and decide whether we even burn that day, or if we start burning and things are laying real heavy, then we have stop burns because of that reason. If the weather is too windy or things like that, we would cancel the burn. So all those are taken into consideration before we even start that day. I have to report everything to the state. The state approves the burn. I have to report everything to North Carolina DENR, which is air quality. Air quality can deny the burn, and then up to the day of the burn, if the ozone is at a certain code level, they will call and tell us we're not allowed to burn. So there's a lot of layers that go into this, and typically what we see when we burn is we want a light breeze, not a heavy breeze. We want a light breeze, and we want it to be a beautiful, clear day, and the smoke goes up and then lays, and the effect of that smoke could even be over the ocean or out over Brunswick County before it, or if it does lay back down heavy. And by lighting and putting it out, it's small bursts of the smoke. So typically, the last one we did, we had a lot of concerns from residents on Snapper. That we went and met with them. A lot of the residents did hang around that day. We do in our letter encourage that if you would like to leave for the day, that's fine. The houses that border it. If you want to stay around, it is fun to watch. We do ask that day you don't leave all your windows open and try to have a beautiful day in your home, because there could be smoke. No different when the state park burns or anybody else burns, you could have smoke, and it's all dependent on the wind. So Ed asked me to just kind of give you guys an overview. I know that was a lot to throw out at one time, but there's a lot of methodology that goes behind it, and it's not just us going out there and throwing a match to it and burning it. It takes about 30 days to go through the whole process and paperwork with the state and having all the plans in place. So,
Council?
I'm okay.
Just, the sooner you can start notifying the residents, the better.
yes, before we do we just got the key to the resident yesterday. Before we physically start training, even at a non-fire level, we will notify so that people don't see fire trucks all in the front yard and go, what's going on? So we're going to be very diligent to make sure that we're good stewards of the people. And even when we do our night drills, we're usually done by 9 o'clock, and we're not going to be doing a ton of noise, but there is some noise associated with fire trucks. But all of our drills on Monday nights are from 7 to 10. We end outside at 9.
And that's a
and go
good
in.
point. They'll be mainly Monday nights.
It's Monday nights for our
So
volunteers.
if they knew that, that would be good.
And yeah, we'll let we're trying to work on a schedule right now. But during the day, the shifts, as they get time, will go out and do different drills on the house.
And if we could get a copy of that flyer and schedule too, that would help us if we get calls or,
Anything we put out, I will send through the town manager to be distributed to you guys.
because the citizens already knew before we did, so.
Yeah, well, they kind of knew before.
They were asking us
They
2
knew
weeks
before we
ago.
did. There was some conversation being had. There was no solid plans.
Right.
When you guys started emailing me, the new owner had not even closed on the property, so there was no training at that point until we had received the closure, and then we actually were given the authority to go in, so.
Thanks, Alan. Appreciate that. Okay, we're going to move into public comment, and just as a reminder, as I say during the meeting, 3 minutes. That's good pun, Steve.
Good point.
Yeah, so 3 minutes. Tom's going to be next to me. He's timing. Nothing personal. You guys know that. You know what you're going to say when you come up here, so we look forward to hearing it. On the sign-up sheet, Mr. Poindexter and Mr. Huth, we're going to do, obviously, your conditional use permit next. Given that, we'll hold that off for the actual CUP, and we'll keep those who've signed up and then open up to the rest of public. Mr. Walters, Dale, you're first up. Kindly give Kim your address. She's smiling.
Good evening. I am Dale Walters, 916 Canal Drive, and I am the chairman of the Canal Drive Flooding Advisory Committee. The last full committee update for Canal Drive was presented to Town Council last January. A lot of progress has been made since then, and the committee would like to briefly summarize the progress that's been made since then and bring the council up to speed in advance of the workshop that we have planned for late November or early December. We've modeled that workshop format on the latest CAMA Land Use Committee's format for soliciting the maximum engagement from the community. The committee feels that it is imperative to build a strong base of community support for the North End. A well-informed citizenry and strong public support platform will be crucial to moving forward with the interagency networking that is going to be required to implement solutions for tidal flooding on Canal and Florida Drive. The workshop is set up in 3 parts. Mr. Hardison here has been invited to present the historical background for the problem. He will kick off the program with the information that he'll be presenting at the State's Resiliency Conference. We will follow up with a summary of accomplishments to date, which includes the fantastic work that Mark Myers, Brian Stanberry, Chief Spivey's crews have already accomplished in establishing local traffic constraints during flood events. On behalf of the committee, I would like to publicly recognize our Operations Department's environmental team for the over and above commitment that they have made to the maintenance and traffic control at the North End. A well-deserved thank you to Dan Woodford, Supervisor, Tim Lowry, crew leader, Tony Millage, crew leader, and the folks that get up early and stay up late, Elizabeth Hewitt, Nate Wallen, Steve Jump, Rick Eisenhower, and Lewis Hall. The difference that they and our police force have made on Canal is measurable and greatly appreciated by the neighborhood. Thank you all for a terrific effort. The committee will wrap up the presentation with a summary of recommended solutions and the challenges associated with them. The takeaway that we are hoping to achieve is that, number one, the Canal Drive flooding is a solvable problem. Number two, that it does not require an exotic solution. And number three, that mitigation can be accomplished with both financial and environmental responsibility. So thank you for this opportunity to update council on committee progress. We hope to see as many of you as possible at the public workshop, and we're looking forward to generous involvement and support from our community. Thank you.
Thanks, Dale.
Thanks, Dave.
And as a reminder, all the committee meetings, the monthly committee meetings are open to the public. Canal Drive Flood Committee meets on Thursday, 6 o'clock in the conference room. So I'll be there.
This one is going to be a little boring because we're going to be working strictly on the workshop, but generally they're open for everybody and we welcome everybody's comments.
Dale, appreciate that.
Thank you.
Mark Miller, sir.
Benson, council members, my name is Mark Miller. I live at 702 Seafarer Drive in Carolina Sands. My concern is the crosswalk on Spartanburg. You guys have done a lovely job. We got the flashing lights and all this. If it's a bicycle and it's a walking path, you have on the path you have a little sign that says stop. You have a electric eye that sees somebody coming to the intersection and it automatically turns on your flashing lights, and you have a button that people push to turn on those lights. Well, if you are driving your car on Spartanburg and you have a bicycler coming, he doesn't stop for that little sign. He's supposed to, but he doesn't. The electric eye catches that bicycler to turn the signs on. Well, the bicycler is going fast enough that when you're driving down the road and you're looking, which is, there's foliage there, but you can slow down and look. That bicycler is in the middle of the road in the crosswalk before those lights come on. And the bicycler knows that he's riding his bike. The heck with the stop sign for him. These lights are going to come on for him. I've contacted several people in council and said, the intersection is great if you get rid of the electric eye. People know that they don't have to stop and push that button because it's going to come on. I've probably come close to hitting 5 or 6 bicycles. I had one that we come almost to a stop, and we're slowing down. I had a gentleman my age or older. He realized that the light hadn't come on. He's on a bicycle. He realized the light had not come on by the time he was in my lane going west. I stopped, he stopped and fell over from me. His eyes were about that big. What are you doing? I said, yeah, and I let him get and go away. Somebody's gonna get hurt because of the time discrepancy. I've almost hit a jogger. A jogger is buzzing down, he's not looking up, he knows there's a crosswalk there. If I hit him and he's in a crosswalk, that's my fault. I don't like it. If he would stop, because he's got a stop sign there, if he would stop, push that button, if the bicyclists would stop and push that button, we'd have a perfect intersection, but they don't. I can go on for an hour.
So that's the recommendation you have,
Just
Mark.
take that, I got 2 recommendations, or 3. Take the CNI out of it. Make the pedestrian responsible for their own actions. This goes back to just common sense. You gotta be responsible for your own actions. Take that CNI out. or make their signs bigger to stop, push the button. Or, I hate to say it, but put a stop sign for the cars driving on Spartanburg. And that's the last thing I want, but if you're not gonna change, you know, it never rings until you need it, right?
That wasn't your timer, was it?
Yeah, that's my time. But either do that.
Speed bumps,
Put a stop sign on
20 feet. Yeah, speed bumps, maybe even 20 feet before that.
Excuse me?
You could always put speed bumps
Yeah,
20 feet
speed
before that.
bumps aren't gonna do a thing. You can put them there, I don't care. I'd rather have a stop sign than speed bumps. I'd rather have the automatic light taken off. And it goes to if, my next question, I guess, is if me or another person in our neighborhood hits a bicycler in that intersection, who's gonna be at fault? Is the driver gonna be at fault? Is the person that gets hit being at fault, or is it gonna be the town of Carolina Beach? Because they've been forewarned more than once. And I just, that's my.
3 minutes.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's, and when you go to Ocean, don't put those buttons in, make them, don't lights, make them push the button. That's
Concur.
all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
So, just a comment on
Some
that.
work to
Can
it,
we
right?
go out and test those? You know, you guys go out and test them. And I'll just throw this at you. I don't know if this was done on purpose or not here, but I was at another beach, and it was on the weekend, and the crosswalks flashed the whole time when there was no one in it. So I don't know if they had the ability to flash them on busy times and leave them on, or I'm just throwing that at you because I don't know. It's pretty interesting that all the cars did stop because the flashers were on. There was nobody in the crosswalk. So I didn't know if that's an option or not.
I agree with Mark, the sensor is something that gives that false sense of security to people, and forcing a pedestrian or bicyclist to stop
Not for me.
on a
Well,
main
and
thoroughway.
it's a narrow street, so there's not enough distance, you know, so, thanks for coming and speaking
the
about that,
sensor.
Mark.
Good observation, Mark. Paul, I see you back there. You're next up in the queue. Next victim. Teasing, of course, for anybody who wants to come up after that.
Okay, I'll state my name and such. Paul Levy. I live at 1606 Mackerel Lane, just south of Texas Avenue. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm glad to have gotten to know some of you outside of this meeting, and thank you for appointing me as a member of the Ad Hoc Business and Economic Development Committee. I'm here about traffic safety as well. This situation on Mackerel Lane, where I live between Ocean Boulevard and Alabama Avenue, due to the heavy volume of commercial vehicles and commuters heading to and from Curry Beach. This includes tractor trailers with heavy construction loads, all sorts of service trucks pulling heavy trailers, and commuters who routinely run the stop sign at the Texas Avenue intersection. An old timer on the street told me that there were no traffic issues until Mackerel Lane was cut through from Alabama Avenue to Settlers Lane, apparently to allow better access for emergency vehicles to and from the subdivisions in Curry. I've owned this house for 4 years, and we've lived there full-time for a year, but I can count on basically one hand the number of times I've seen an EMS or fire run on the street, much less proceed across Alabama into Curry. I think I've seen that one time. But the added traffic and heavy commercial vehicles are destroying a residential street in order to bypass roads that are maintained fully or partly by the state to the benefit of Curry Beach, and ultimately at the expense of Carolina Beach when the street finally falls apart. I'm concerned about cars repeatedly running the stop sign at the corner of Mackerel Lane and Texas Avenue. They're not rolling through, they're driving at full speed. Many of the cars are also speeding. Most have KB stickers on their bumpers. With the approval that we just heard about from NCDOT for additional speed controls on Lake Park, maybe in the future Ocean and Dow, and with all the commercial development we're working on North Lake Park and downtown, I believe the traffic on Mackerel Lane will become worse. So I'm asking for the problem to be addressed now rather than later, before we have an accident like we had downtown. In the short term, I'd like to see more police attention to the Mackerel Lane and Texas Avenue intersection.
I know that the police do patrol there, but a little more would certainly be helpful. In the longer term, I'm asking that the town designate Mackerel Lane between Ocean Boulevard and Alabama Avenue as closed to through trucks with the appropriate signage and again, police enforcement. I would also like to see speed bumps considered on Mackerel Lane because it would passively enforce the speed limit and further deter through traffic. I've seen low, wide speed bumps, maybe 5 feet wide, at one of the shopping centers, at Oleander and Independence. They're in my daughter's neighborhood in Charlotte, and she has a similar situation to us with a street that goes from one neighborhood to another. I think it's also consistent with a lot of other requests that I've heard at these meetings for Sumter, Spartanburg, and North Carolina Avenue. I'll be happy to attend any committee meetings as needed to further present the issue, but I would just ask that this be addressed before we have another safety incident on that street.
Paul, what was that intersection, Mackerel and
Texas.
Texas? And that's where you
You
said
can
the stop
include
sign
all of
issue is?
Wilmington Beach if you want to.
What's that?
You can include the rest of Wilmington Beach because they blow through all of them.
You're right, but Mackerel is the one that goes obviously through to Curry.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah,
I
I know.
see, you
Right.
know, just like, again, like somebody
Instead of Lake Park, yeah.
said, Lake Park, just pouring out in the morning, pouring back in the evening.
Yeah, I'm in Ocean and Mackerel. I see the big trucks headed your way.
Yeah, okay.
Feels like deja vu. Is this like is it something for TRC, I would imagine,
So-
at least initiate?
You know, more and more people coming to Carolina Beach. You hear this more and more as we're having issues and looking for ways for traffic calming. What's the right way? Do we, put up choke down on a roadway, put up speed humps, speed bumps, more stop signs, different things that we could possibly put up. So every one of them would need to be looked at by a traffic engineer. It comes up time to time, the mayor will get an RFI and I'll say, well, we could look at a traffic calming proposal, or we could do an RFP if we wanted to look at something like that and have a traffic engineer make recommendations for different parts of the town of what we could, where would different mechanisms would be appropriate. So we could look at doing something like that if that was what council wanted to do.
How about looking at no commercial vehicles, some simple signage? I don't know that requires DOT.
Can we do that?
Just, no commercial, the big trucks, that's a problem.
You got a lot
Yeah.
of construction trucks. That's where they're building houses, so it's hard to limit that.
Yeah, and we could look at that. It's something we still want to talk about. Enforcement. How would we look at enforcement? Who are we limiting by doing that? Like Tom mentioned. So.
Can I say something about the construction trucks since it came up? You know what I'm talking about. There are about 8 houses that have been started in Curry.
That whole
right-
section down there.
Right on Pinfish, Mackerel, and Settlers Lane.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure that there are gonna be many more lots even available. But what I see, and you probably see this as well, are tons of lawn maintenance, plumbers, all the other routine trucks. They're clearly using that street as the cut through.
And they've been using that since I've been here, so.
For action, Ed. Yeah. Paul, good presentation and recommendations, which are equally as valuable when we present a problem.
Yeah.
Anything else, guys?
Just thanks, Paul, for bringing that. And I saw the police chief write down that information, so maybe he can get somebody over there to. Thanks for
All right.
coming, Paul.
Would any another member of public like to approach council? And with that, we will move into public hearings and a conditional use permit. So, that is the next item on the agenda, is a public hearing to consider a conditional use permit application. All individuals intending to testify must come forward and be sworn in by the town clerk. Or have they already been? No. Okay.
Good thinking. What's that? Oh, you're pondering, okay. We can.
No coffee.
No coffee, I brought my own.
I had some drink, there's no more left.
At this time, I open the evidentiary hearing. I would like the town attorney to give a brief overview of a quasi-judicial hearing.
I'm sure y'all all know what I'm getting ready to say, but in case there's anybody here tonight that's first time for a quasi-judicial hearing, a quasi-judicial hearing is an evidentiary hearing, and counsel will serve much like judges in a court of law, which means they must follow very specific procedures that are required by state law in making their decision tonight. Specifically, they have limited discretion, and that discretion is limited in that they must make their decision based on competent, relevant, and substantial evidence that is in the record. That's why these folks have just come and taken an oath. If you're speaking as a witness, please focus on the facts and standards and not personal preference or opinion. If you intend to testify, please do not offer any unsupported opinions or speculation, because the board cannot consider that testimony. Please limit your testimony to relevant and competent, substantial, and material evidence. Before we begin, Mayor, Council, the parties before you tonight are entitled to have this matter adjudged by an impartial decision maker. If you have a conflict of interest, you must not participate. The conflict of interest exists if you have a close familial, business, or other relationship with an affected person or a financial interest in the outcome of the matter. Does any member of the board have any partiality to disclose and recusal to offer?
No.
Does any member of the board have any ex parte communications to disclose?
No.
Does any member of the board have any objection to any board member's participation?
No.
Hearing none, Mr. Hardison.
Jeremy?
Mayor, council, good evening. Before you is a conditional use permit for a planned unit development that will consist of 36 unit condos located at 402 North Lake Park Boulevard. 28 of those units will be one bedroom and 8 will be 2 bedroom condos. The proposal is for a 4-story building on pilings. The site is situated in between Inland Harbor and Domino's off of where Lake Park Boulevard and St. Joseph split. It's also in split zoning. The front part of the property is highway business. The water side is marina business, and this is where the actual structure will be situated. Prior uses of this lot were in 2004 there was residence on this lot that was demolished. In 2006 it was approved for 32 two-bedroom units, and in 2015 under the same ownership it was approved for 36 one-bedroom units, and that permit has since expired because no construction has started, and conditional use permit is good for 2 years. Here again is a little look at the site, and existing, it's vacant. There are some improvements made to the property with a bulkhead and a dock, as well as some day boat docking. You must make 7 specific standards that the applicant must make provisions for. One is ingress and egress to the property. They're proposing a 24-foot entrance off of St. Joseph Street that meets the ordinance. 5-foot sidewalk they are installing adjacent to St. Joseph that will tie into the sidewalk on the other side of Domino's leading to the Central Business District. They will provide a 20-foot dedicated fire lane on the north side of the building, kind of marked here with a stone pattern with the pavers. This is a requirement from the fire department to provide this fire lane as a distance to run, the ability to run hoses along the around in the side of the building. They will also, staff is recommending to provide an easement of interconnectivity of a future stub out to the property to the south when or if it gets redeveloped. And this is adjacent to the Domino's site located here. Off-street parking, they are meeting their requirements, and they have provided actually 4 spaces over the 44 required parking spaces, and this is based off the number of bedrooms per unit. Refuse and service area will be provided on site. It will be located here to the south of the property, and the dumpster will be enclosed. Utilities are adequate to meet the demand for this project for water and sewer. They will be adding a fire hydrant and providing on-site stormwater treatment. The requirement for the scope of this project is a 10-foot landscape buffer. They are asking an exception to this where the fire lane is required adjacent to Inland Harbor. They are putting aligning along the property line a row of shrubbery and beefing up the landscaping along where the pool area is. And they are providing the 10-foot on the other side, with the exception of where the stub out and the dumpster is located. They are proposing a monument sign at the entrance of the project. They are meeting the required setbacks and open space requirements. The maximum height of the building is 57 feet to the top of the elevator shaft. They are meeting the setback requirements for the 1-for-1 as a cumulative measurement.
Can you back up on that one for a minute there, Jerry? There's a lot of stuff to try and understand there.
Yes. So they'll have some surface parking in the front, and then they'll have some parking underneath the building here, and then they're proposing a pool along the water side.
So the lot coverage is the structure, not total impervious, it's the structure, right?
It's the actual structure, correct?
Right, so they're allowed 40% and they're at 26?
Yes, sir. And then they'll be retaining all the stormwater from the impervious surfaces on site. Along with the 7 specific standards, there's 4 general conditions that the applicant must address. The conditions associated with this project is the landscape buffer waiver as presented with that fire lane, a 5-foot sidewalk along St. Joseph Street. They would be installing a state stormwater system because of the scope and the amount of impervious surface for the project. This will require a major CAMA permit. And as I mentioned before, provide a stub out for future interconnectivity to the property of the south. And also staff would like council to consider an easement for a future expansion of the Marina Walk. And what this would potentially look like is, as these properties along the marina get redeveloped, is an extension of the walk through these properties to promote pedestrian use and interconnectivity to the marina and provide accessibility to the sound, which the CAMA land use plan does support.
Jeremy, how would that look on their plan? Can you back up for a second on their site plan? You're saying you're looking for an additional easement?
So what that would be is, it's almost, if you think of maybe the Riverwalk downtown Wilmington, where it is in front of private properties. So it would be, look for a 10-foot easement along the shoreline.
In the CAMA setback?
It would be located in the CAMA setback. And before we, of course, had to do it, went through the project, and there's nothing has been planned or designed or approved for any expansion.
So where your cursor is right there, Jeremy, what does that plan reflect? What are those hashes? Is that parking? Is that?
That's right there is the bulkhead.
I got the bulkhead. I see the
And then
dock in
10 foot
front of it. What are those lashed lines
There's a
right behind the
30-foot
bulkhead?
buffer from the bulkhead to the pool.
So what are the hashed lines right there where your cursor is right there? Behind the bulkhead, that right there.
Yeah, my understanding that is just the tiebacks.
Thank you. So there would be nothing that would prevent, we wouldn't be coming back later on an easement and having to remove something that's integral to a property, or we wouldn't have to be replacing something. Is that the way I'm seeing that? It's just open space? I mean,
Correct,
it's,
from,
right,
from,
okay.
from staff's
All right.
perspective. I'm
Do we
sure
currently have that easement? Is that what you're saying?
is
You
for-
want that easement?
If the town in the future ever wanted to expand the Marina Walk, the easement would already be in place.
We should ask for it.
No.
That's what he's saying.
Okay.
And we would have to go through CAMA permitting, of course, for that.
Yeah.
And that's all I have.
Jeremy,
I'll
that's
answer
all
any
you got,
questions.
Jeremy, wait, well, I guess we'll come
No,
back after we hear all the applicants and
Hey,
pros and cons.
that stub out was a town request, which the applicant would grant?
I
Or
think
is
the
that
applicant,
something I'm gonna discover through the
the applicant
presentation?
would probably, would like to address the council with,
During that, okay, fair enough.
the applicant's hearing would,
Okay. The applicant may now present evidence and legal arguments in support of the request.
Thank you very much. My name's Charles Poindexter. Good evening, Mayor and Council. There's just a couple of notes to the presentation just made there, two specific items that I would like to address. I'm gonna go ahead and address the last one first, and if we need to bring that slide back up, we can. I'm not sure, I've worked with Jeremy now for years on this project. I'm not sure Jeremy actually understood your question, Mr. Shuttleworth. Currently, our bulkhead and floating dock and gazebo stand are constructed and in place. There's a pier line in that harbor. The only way you come, right next to our dock, the only way that a future boardwalk can come through there would be to deconstruct my pier, my walk, and all that stuff. So I don't know if Jeremy understood exactly your question, but there's no way that you can physically put what they would like to see there on this particular property without affecting.
So behind those dead men, right there where the green vegetation is, you don't think there's a way to put a walkway?
It'd be half in my pool and half in my yard,
So
probably.
you have 30 feet behind that bulkhead to where, before you hit your pool?
That's our CAMA setback,
What is your CAMA setback?
30 feet from the
Right, I understand. So if you have the bulkhead, just helping me understand this, if I have the bulkhead right there and I was to go just a couple of feet behind the bulkhead and ask for 10 feet for a walkway, that's not gonna be in your pool. It would be in what? Grassed area?
it would be, yeah, well, it'd be encumbering my property where
it would.
the residents are living, and that's planned for their living space, you know. It's the front yard of the project, so. There's, you know, I get the opportunity as a developer to build a lot of sidewalks and MUPs that go nowhere. This is an example of that, because once you exit my property to the north, you can bring it up right now, that'd be the end of it. It's just not gonna go anywhere. And we discussed this with staff at length, in this process, that there were two
I
things.
think the
that-
idea was we were looking to extend it from the south to the north. And yes, it may terminate someday at your property, but ultimately the plan would be to bring it from the harbor across Blackburn and the other, I mean, I understand what you're saying.
I got you. Well, one thing that we might consider is this. Apparently, there was some language that may solve this particular issue for both of us. Rather than us providing a specific easement at this time, we would make, and I'll refer to my attorney if I need to, we would allow for the possibility of a future easement if it were to become a viable alternative. In other words, not encumber my property today, but make an allowance for a possible future encumbrance if it merits it. Because just giving up 10 feet of property to the town of Carolina Beach doesn't sound like a very good idea to me.
And
To be
to this,
completely honest with you.
we're, to a certain extent, we're entertaining a hypothetical right
Right,
now at this
right. So-
point in time.
So that may be one possible resolution to that. The second thing was this interconnectivity between us and the property to the south, which is currently Domino's. And Jeremy, if you could pull that site plan back up, what are referred to as stub outs, we actually do not have stub outs on our plan because we do not plan for that interconnectivity. Those are actually many hammerheads for getting out of your stalls, your parking stalls. So, Jeremy, once again, I didn't want to trip you up, but those are not called out as such. Our thought there is very simple. There's no connectivity to the north. To the south is currently a commercial operation known as Domino's Pizza. If we connect to that property, all we're doing is providing a free parking lot for a lot of pizza delivery vehicles. And we believe that that would be a huge safety concern to our residents, not to mention possibly taking us below our legal parking requirement parameter.
I don't think anyone's asking you to make the connectivity. I think what they're asking for is, in the future, if that property to the south is developed, to allow them that connectivity. In other words, I understand you don't want to open that up as a parking lot and have Domino's guys, delivery guys sitting there. I mean, if there's a hard curb there and there's no direct access, I don't know that that's an impediment to you. But I think what we're trying to do overall is look at that overall intersection, the connectivity between adjacent parcels, long-term master plan redevelopment of other properties to the south of you. I
Well,
don't
just
think we're asking you
I
to pave
understand.
it to where it's a driveway open.
Okay. Yep.
I mean, are you asking for an open driveway?
No, sir, no, just a stub out. For
No, you're-
any future development could connect to it.
So it could have a hard curb on it until such time as another development may or may not ever come in there?
Correct. And just for clarification, yeah, these two last items were just staff recommendations. They're not ordinance requirements.
Well, you bring up,
Preempted my question.
well, he brings up a good point, and it was always the intent that it would remain hardscape, and it's just a future thing. But I have to think about the people that we sell this property to that live there, and I have to think about their future enjoyment. They're gonna connect into my parking lot. So what's the point in connecting into my parking lot? Because it's a parking lot. So that would be my thoughts on that. And finally, the last thing was, just to make sure, again, Jeremy's exactly right, these are recommendations by staff. Item number 14, it says we will work with NCDOT about the St. Joseph intersection, if that's what you call that thing. But anyway, this conversation goes back to a former mayor that's on public record as stating that we were to speak to NCDOT, which I've talked to the engineers all the time about various things, and I've talked to him about this, but he clearly stated that it is not this developer's responsibility to solve the issues in that intersection. So we'll talk to them, and we're going to do anything, just like we have across this project, to try and accommodate the town of Carolina Beach, but we don't have any ability to impact that intersection, to my knowledge.
No, I would think that would be something that the town takes to DOT in our conversations related to the earlier presentation. Is that an accurate read, Ed?
Sir.
Yes. Official, that is, official communication.
We'll come back to that.
Yeah. Board have any questions? Witness?
Explain to me your landscape buffer. I know that that was an issue, and I think the fire chief and you, can you tell us what exactly the landscape buffer requirement? Jeremy, tell us what the landscape buffer requirement is and how we're meeting that, or the variables in that.
So the requirement is for a 10-foot, essentially, of a green area that consists of 6 shrubs for every linear 50 feet. And also, you would have to have 2 canopy, or if you so choose, 4 understory trees within that area.
Within every 50 feet, or how does that read?
Within a linear 50 feet.
Right, so if you have 50 feet, you're supposed to have 2 trees every 50 feet, and I think what I heard you say is they've decided to bulk this all together to allow for the fire marshal's requirement for the 20 feet. Is that the way I understood you?
Correct, and beef up other areas of the property with
So-
landscaping.
At the end of the day, if you had 100, I don't know how long this is, let's say it's 150 feet, you'd be looking at 18 shrubs and 6 trees, ballpark, if it's 150 feet. That would be the requirement. Is that my math correct? Right? If it's 156 and 3 is 18 and 2 and 3 is 6. And what you're saying is they've moved those all into one area to provide the amount of foliage we've asked for, but also to still accommodate the fire chief's
Yes, that's what I've
requirement for a 20-foot.
I've talked to the property owner on trying to achieve, to see if there's a little bit of give and take that he can sense of the requirement of the fire department.
But there's no condition for spacing the trees, shrubs, a certain distance based over the entire length of the property line?
I mean, there is some flexibility there.
Okay.
Do you have that straight? Because I can straighten it out.
No,
think.
I got it straight.
Okay, because it's, yeah.
Any other questions, council? Okay. Does the applicant have any other witnesses to call? That's a no.
Good.
Okay,
Yes,
with
sir.
that, thanks, Charles. With that, I make a motion to open public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Would the public like to approach council? Any member of the public? Nothing seen, heard. Make a motion to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Does the board have any more questions for the parties or witnesses before we deliberate?
Jeremy,
Yes.
can you go back to the satellite view of the lot? I actually wanted to see where that intersection is. Can you pull it back any more so you can see the road a little better?
Yes.
So you're looking at St. Joseph.
Right, there you go.
No, I think it was St. Joseph that we're all interested in looking at.
Yeah, I find it interesting that this is a Lake Park address when St. Joseph's clearly in
I
front
just
of
wanted
it.
to see where that lot falls on that street.
Yeah.
Ed or Jeremy, at the beginning of your presentation, you went through several different occasions when this property had received a conditional use permit. The last one, I think you said, was in 2015. Was that basically the same applicant, and we've just hadn't gotten to the finish line?
It was. There's been some.
Right, and so
Some
in
modifications of the
2015,
project.
right, we did some modifications. We've talked about side setbacks. We've talked about centering and that. We've done those. But Ed, in 2015, when we approved this, there was a healthy discussion of what this applicant would do to participate in any potential Lake Park, St. Joseph. I thought we put a dollar amount on that said they would agree. We couldn't have them redesign the whole thing, but I thought we had agreed to some contribution, or the town was gonna, what was the workout we gave?
Just as a reminder, this is a quasi-judicial hearing, so the previous knowledge you may have from previous CUP applications need to be discarded, and you need to focus on the evidence that's presented tonight.
Okay.
So my question would be, what has triggered this? Because I know we have, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but I know we have seen it before. What's triggered this to come? Is it a renewal? Is it some change that has triggered it back before us?
The owner has actually obtained what you see is labeled as Lee's Lane. Is now, it was a private road, and they have now purchased that road and combined it as part of their property. They've also increased the number of bedrooms for 8 of the units, and the building has gotten slightly a little larger in width.
But still within
Yeah, it's a problem.
what is allowed for that zoning?
But yes, it meets the zoning requirements.
And it triggers a
residential
CUP
standards
because of what it is?
Of multifamily.
Okay,
in marina
multifamily.
business.
But it's within the zoning laws for that lot?
Yes, ma'am.
So, Jeremy or Ed, what are the long-term plans that the town has been working with on Lake Park and St. Joseph on that intersection? And is there has there been a discussion with this applicant on this CUP about participation on those? That is the most difficult intersection we have on Lake Park. It's got the funky little 3 different sections of concrete, the left, I mean,
We have hired a traffic engineer to look at that intersection and come back with some options. We have looked at several options for it. Implementation with this project is not something that was feasible for them to do with the timeline we had. So we didn't, that's not part of this proposal is to have that
Okay, but
implemented.
from a practicality of a traffic engineering, if you look at the driveway that they've proposed coming out, it goes right into that weird three-way left over, right over yield.
People coming in, people going out.
I mean, I have no problem with the plan that we've talked about. We've gone through this on, I think they understand the buffer they're asking. I appreciate the fact they're doing stormwater on site, but traffic is always the issue, and that particular one is gonna dump right out at that intersection. I don't know how you pull into the building, into their parking lot, or leave their parking lot without interfacing. You can't go,
Where'd he go is.
what did you guys
right.
talk about at TRC when it came to this CUP with that intersection?
To go to Jeremy, I wasn't.
Yeah, it definitely was is a concern. We talked to the applicant about it. The applicant said, basically, they'll talk to DOT. DOT said, yes, we'll be glad to help with the design, with the applicant, but the applicant wasn't able to contribute anything financially to, any improvements made.
Were any of the DOT approved, our requests they approved that came back related to the intersection here? In,
For the last questions that we sent DOT,
right. They came
I-
back with
I don't believe
approvals
this
on a
was
number of
included.
encroachments.
That was
any
not
of
in
those
there.
discussions.
Okay.
St. Joseph's is the town street,
Yeah.
is that correct?
Yes, sir.
This property has a Lake Park address,
Yes.
Yes.
so Lake Park's a DOT road?
Yes, sir.
Do they have to get a DOT permit, driveway access permit? I mean, I'm in a pickle here,
No.
because I mean, this project, this particular CUP, I understand is a new application, I get that. We gotta disavow all the previous history we have. Okay, if you want me to look at it as an isolated case, which I understand, Ms. Fox. What are we doing with St. Joseph and Lake Park? That intersection is not acceptable, and dumping 60,
40.
It's late in the game to put an undue burden on an applicant. Frankly, Jeremy, this should have been addressed with the applicant on the initial submittal. If they have to get a DOT driveway permit, then they have to meet with DOT. If it's gonna be a Lake Park, a St. Joseph driveway permit, then the town has to do something, and maybe the town needs to be a player, but you,
So is that 44 parking places?
Yeah.
Is that math correct?
44 is required
So
parking.
it's a possibility of 44 cars in and out.
In and out daily with our summer traffic.
right, which isn't overburdening St. Joseph. I mean, it's not gonna
No.
back traffic
No,
up, but it's just a safety
That's
issue.
my concern as well, is the
It's a
road.
safety issue.
Not so much the parking.
So we've heard from the applicant that they're willing to talk to DOT and participate, but
The burn would fall on us.
As a matter of separate, and I don't want to do that, but this really is something that the town would pursue. Fix to it, since we're talking about a Lake Park address.
Lake Park address, but
where
it
it's
doesn't
sitting.
sound like they'd have to get the DOT permits. So.
Correct.
Well, that ship has sailed, I think, as far as TRC is related. Anything else for, come on up.
no, I applaud the staff for working with the applicant and understanding the buffer, and I think that's a great workable, because going against public safety is always difficult, and when I read that, the fire chief said, I gotta have 20 feet. The intent of the buffer is to provide a certain amount of foliage. It sounds like the applicant's willing to do that and has done that. So I applaud them for working through that and working through all these other issues. As far as the easement goes, I would have no problem having our town attorney draft language that said it's an easement and it should be effective only at such time as a marina boardwalk is approved and funded. I mean, I understand they don't want to be burdened with some ambiguous easement forever that may never materialize, but I don't like the idea of coming back later and saying, well, you guys said you'd talk about it, so we're talking about it. I mean,
But that's a hypothetical at this point in time.
You're just
so.
leaving the, I mean, we've talked about it, and no, you can't have it.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Charles, did you have something else to say?
All I was gonna say was, I didn't know if it would be helpful to have any clarification on this address and driveway permit situation. If you delve into the plans, despite the 402 North Lake Park address, it is a St. Joseph Street driveway access, so that's where the permit's got
That's
to be
ambiguity
generated
there.
from.
Yeah, that would be addressed as a separate matter. Any other questions, council, or any questions at all?
I guess I'm just not that clear from staff on how you guys
Tackle that situation.
addressed it. Yeah, I don't have a problem with the project, but the street is not. The street access is not that great.
You have one in and out.
At this point now, it needs to be addressed.
If I understand council correctly, your concern is with specific standard number 1. Or also one of the general conditions.
Yes.
I'm sorry, what are you saying?
Egress and-
Which one?
That number one, ingress.
You're
and
talking
egress.
about ingress and egress to the property.
Right. Well. And so those mediums that we're referring to, are they technically Lake Park Boulevard, or are they technically St. Joseph Street?
technically neither.
And we've talked about that intersection for a long time, what we
I
would
mean,
That's an awful.
It's a control access off of a DOT road, so DOT would approve what that access is.
And that wasn't a part of the original request. Now I'm branching off away from the topic, I think, as it relates to that, so I won't do that, but
And
that's a separate and discrete, but an important one nonetheless. Do I have a motion?
Still stuck on,
You got it, Steve.
I agree with Steve and Leanne in regards to trying to solve that first part of this issue,
Yeah.
which is, as the attorney says, the ingress and egress as well as.
Well, I'm gonna make a motion to approve. I'm looking for the page. Can you tell me what page
I
I'm
think-
on?
You got a
Number
Conditional use
4.
permit.
approval statement?
Page 30.
I find it meets the specific standards. I would also include the conditions associated with the site-specific situation, with the exception, I need some help on the easement for future connectivity, or provide an easement for future expansion of Marina Walk. So I find it meets the 4 specific standards and 4 general conditions.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed?
I'm still trying to wrap my head around this.
Well, you
Well,
know,
we can, then, don't have to
I'm the
call
only
for the
nay, so it
question.
doesn't matter.
I mean, I think we've worked very hard as a community to see this. I'm just, the easement is the only one I'm having a problem with, is how to get that easement in there.
Y'all just voted to approve.
Yeah, it's already approved. I don't know. what
I understand. Can we ask staff, I mean,
Hey, for the record, Joe Dan, was your vote
Nay.
nay? Okay. All right.
Yeah, the question's a little late. so.
Well, I would give a follow-up.
I gotta make sure I get,
I mean, I think that we should probably address that intersection. We've been talking about it for years.
yeah, oh yeah.
No.
This goes to our.
And it's
our
not the
back and
applicant's
forth.
fault that it's
We have a
full
great,
street.
Brian's got a great,
Can we take a break? So,
yeah.
We already voted.
Did you get that easement, opportunity?
Or, okay. What do you need, Steve? 5?
5.
All right. I'm gonna recess for 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Be back in seats at 8:35.
Got it. Yeah, I know. You're right. I have a gnat that keeps laying down. my side. He's a quick little devil.
Hey, how are you? Absolutely. How are you? Hey. I understand. If you don't have to, don't.
means there's 3 in the room now. Charles, you're an attorney, right? Oh, thank God. You just dress like one.
My brakes reload water. Yeah, no, after I reload, I got unload. It's inevitable.
Miles, 1 minute.
I know, yeah.
I'm going by the imperfect science of the wall clock that I can barely.
Miles, I heard you're going to the middle school. That should be an audience you're well versed in speaking to that level.
Take some candy with you.
Oh, I'm not gonna give them that habit.
Stickers and candy.
Yeah, stickers, no candy.
I just meant his current interface is probably similar.
Oh, they prefer candy, I think.
Oh, they might, but
Yeah, no, don't give them candy.
I don't, Halloween they'll get plenty in about a couple
Oh,
of weeks.
they'll have enough then. Bad time at school. Sugar level is so high.
Right, that's what, well.
Okay.
I think we're ready.
Miles, please.
Kim, we good?
Yes, we can.
All right. Mayor, Council, good evening. Good to see you all again. It's been a little while. Tonight, I'll be going over a text amendment to allow business plan unit developments, or PUDs as they're more commonly known, in the neighborhood zoning district in town of Carolina Beach. The applicant is Ralph Roof, who is here this evening and has an opportunity to speak after I get through with this. So a business PUD is the same thing as a residential PUD, only we're looking at commercial structures. So it's any time you're doing 2 units or more on a parcel based on density, size parameters, etc., to allow for a more intensive commercial use of a property. So you're looking the Publix property is an example of a planned unit development, though they do plan to partial that off eventually. And the whole point is to basically provide better flexibility to design, to take advantage of the site that they have to accumulate, preserve open space, but still allow efficient use of the land that may result in, a different type of development. In this case, we're going to be focused on the uses that are primarily already allowed in the neighborhood business district. So the neighborhood business district that's described by the current land use plan as well as the current zoning ordinance is designed to accommodate for small pedestrian-oriented shopping and service activities and looking at personal services that really are immediate and connected to the neighborhood that surrounds them. And you can see that in a lot of the properties that are currently operating in the neighborhood business district on the South Lake Park as well as the one parcel on the north end. So it's not intended to discourage any use or which would not be in harmony with the residential community or be detrimental to the surrounding residential uses. It's a lower intensity commercial district, but it still is a commercial district. So this is the neighborhood business district primarily. There's one parcel zoned neighborhood business at 901 Carolina Beach Avenue North, but for the most part it is just along this stretch of Lake Park Boulevard South running from South L Lake to Carolina Sands. And it stretches back on Sumter to 2nd Street, but otherwise only, and on Birmingham, but otherwise only fronts Lake Park. It's across from primarily multifamily uses in that area and surrounded by mixed use or the single and 2 family R1 zoning district. The future land use mix of the mixed use 1 in the current land use plan is looking for lower intensity restaurants and commercial services and retail, looking for 15 to 70 units per acre, looking to have roughly 40% lot coverage, all standard things that fall within neighborhood business in the zoning district, zoning ordinance as well. So it's nothing out of the ordinary with what the land use plan recommends. And just so you have perspective of it, this is the mixed use 1 district down here next to Carolina Sands, bordering between Carolina Sands and the lake. It is, as I said, adjacent to multifamily primarily, some more intense residential activities, as well as the more conservative
R1 and R2 zoning districts behind it, or land use plan districts in this case.
It looks like we're considering, that's the future land use map, correct?
This is the 2007 land use plan.
Okay.
That's what they're all referred to as.
Well, except for on this map right here, you see where it has mixed use 1 to the south of that,
Mhm.
and mixed use 1 to the north, above commercial, way up north. Right, come down, there you go.
Mhm.
Are those two sections you just went to, are those on the current or the future land use?
This is the current land use plan from 2007, which in its documentation is referred to as the future land use plan.
So currently, do we have those 3 sections that are mixed use 1?
This is the land use plan that we use for every CUP and every text amendment currently. All of these do exist.
Okay, so the one to the north of the commercial, right there at Central Business, that is in existence today?
As a land use plan classification area, yes, it is.
Okay, and the one to the south across all the way down, that's in existence today?
Yes.
Okay, so what we're talking about would impact all 3 of those plus the isolated single
No.
spot?
This is a zoning ordinance text amendment. We are not amending the land use plan.
So we're not amending the land use plan, but we're changing the zoning ordinance. So on those other 2 parcels, the one to the north and one to the south, those zones have never been changed. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
So those currently have a different zone even though the land use map, the existing current land use map, show them as mixed use 1.
They have different individual zoning districts, yes, sir. I believe this portion is CBD going into T1, and I believe the southern portion here is primarily mixed use.
The plan is a plan. So I plan to
I understand
eat
that.
everything out of the vending machine. I may or may not do it. I brought enough money to do it. This map that was adopted in 2007 was the plan.
Yes, and we've had a number of discussions about the one to the north of the commercial and saying that that was a TI and that we couldn't do mixed use, anyway. My point is, in the future, if we adopt this proposed ordinance and we ever change these other zones, it would be in effect for those zones as well.
No, this is only affecting the neighborhood business zoning district.
That was my point, the neighborhood zoning, right.
I'm just providing the background of the Cameron land use plan so that everyone is aware of the proposed planning for that area to be a mixed-use area.
Okay.
Any other questions regarding that?
This was confusing.
Okay.
Clear to you?
Okay.
I think his concern was down the road, that means the others could apply for that as well, correct?
Theoretically, the T1 zoning district or the mixed-use zoning district could come in with an application to allow a commercial plan unit development if it is not already allowed.
And it would be harder to shoot that down if we're already allowing one change today, correct?
Yes, sir.
That's what I think Steve's concern was, that he was trying to just.
Well, it's a concern, it's an observation. And whether it's, I get it. I'm not opposed to the PUD for the business, but I just want to make sure we all understand that this could have a ripple effect.
Well, in the case of those districts, the T1 has business PUDs conditional by right. The mixed-use zoning district does not.
So where is it allowed now? Is that what you're showing us?
Yes, ma'am. This is the proposed language change where it's currently allowed in the CBD, the HB, the MB1, and the T1 zoning districts by conditional use permit. You would simply be allowing it to also be added to the neighborhood business zoning district.
What would a commercial pub look like?
It could be a property of 2 or more structures containing any number of potential businesses inside of them. A good example would be the current Publix property where they have proposals for not just the 7 businesses, Publix and the others, but also the 2 other buildings that were proposed with their CUP. Now, I believe that those parcels are intended to be separated off eventually, but currently they're all under one and would be considered a planned unit development.
But you're now asking to have that ordinance include the neighborhood business.
Yes, sir.
So for examples, the north end 900 block where there's the coffee shop and the
Covered grocery.
Covered.
Yes, sir. So if they theoretically, if that building was destroyed or torn down and someone wanted to reinvest in the property and they could meet the density requirements and the spacing requirements of a proposal, they could potentially put 2 commercial structures on that lot.
It's grandfathered in one of our historic waivers in Carolina Beach.
So that is kind of a PUD now because it's 2 businesses together on one parcel.
It's not the number of businesses, it's the number of structures. That's the important thing, because there are multiple structures in the town that have multiple businesses in them. Any of the strip shopping centers that border the north end of Lake Park would be a primary example. Not all of them came in as planned unit developments. A lot of them were just simply a business park, essentially.
Structures on one property.
Yes, ma'am.
So Miles, we've philosophically talked as a council over the last number of years, Jeremy, Ed, to do away with CUPs because they were just, I mean, we talked about not having as many conditional use permits. They're just hard to enforce and track. We get all these additional conditions. Ms. Fox, you look shocked at that? Have we not had those conversations? Where we said it's either a use by right or not, but continuing to have to go through P&Z and council for a conditional use.
I have not been a part of those, to my recollection.
I think there's some of the planned unit developments that would be more intense, and then some of them that would be less intense that we have had those conversations, although when you were out of, not in office, but I think we would look at that because this is a kind of a holistic view. There could be significantly more intense business or residential PUD where you would want that to come back. But I think Councilman Shuttleworth's right. There's probably some limited smaller PUDs, whether it's business or residential, where we could come back and permit those by right.
So there's restrictions that if we change this, an applicant would have to meet to be able to build an additional structure on. So those restrictions are already in place.
Yes, ma'am. The CUP ensures that those, not only do they have to meet the standard building code, fire code, zoning code restrictions, but also that they have to meet the general standards and specific standards of a conditional use permit, such that if there was concern from the public or council that a project may be too intense for an area, even though they could meet the zoning and building standards or something of that nature.
So the only allowance right now to have 2 buildings on a lot is through a planned unit development. So this would give you the allowance to have 2 separate structures on the same lot, where you could have 2 different businesses. But they don't have to,
And they would still have parking requirements.
still have parking, still have setbacks, still have lot coverage, still have stormwater.
Okay. So that's the proposed language. It's just simply neighborhood business to conditional use permit for business plan unit developments. And staff's recommendation is simply that we acknowledge that this zone is primarily for lower intensity commercial operations. We don't necessarily have any objections to business plan unit developments being located in them, provided that the uses for the proposal met with the standards of neighborhood business, and that the proposal could meet all of the requirements for it to be suitable and pass the ordinance.
Well, let's see what the public has to say, and we'll come back to staff. Make a motion to open for public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Member of the public? Nothing seen, heard. Make a motion to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Questions for follow-ons for Miles? Nothing heard. Do you have, that's the approval statement, Miles. Okay. With that, I make a motion to amend Chapter 40, Article 8, Section 40 to 72 to allow for PUDs in the NB zoning district in the town of Carolina Beach is consistent with the goals and objectives of the adopted land use plan and other long-range plans. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thanks. Thanks, Miles.
Of course.
Okay. I think you're up next as well.
I'm just gonna stay right here. I can't get enough. So next we'll be looking at a text amendment for, it's really an ordinance consolidation effort. We're trying to streamline things as we have done over the years. Do you have this open? So we're just gonna be updating government and public facilities in the table of permissible uses, as well as the definitions of the zoning ordinance. The proposed ordinance going before you is simply we had two separate definitions for government facilities and public facilities. We're simply consolidating the two of them into one and creating government and public facilities and public utilities, as well as consolidating the definition. And there used to be conditional use permit in every residential zoning district, and we are proposing that they go to permitted by right in every residential zoning district, as most of those projects are already coming forward to council. There's already multiple notification processes going out to neighbors for any time, especially looking at the multi-use paths and things of those natures. All of those are being heavily vetted already. We thought that an additional conditional use permit would be superfluous.
Like the way you're thinking. Okay.
And staff recommends the approval of the language to streamline things overall. So I'm happy to bring the language back up if you'd like to review it again. But
If you put that up, I'm going to open for public hearing and just tap that there in the backdrop, if you would.
Yes, sir.
So with that, I make a motion to open public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Anyone from the public? Nothing seen, heard. I make a motion to close public hearing. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Council?
So that's all our different zones, each and every one of them.
yes, sir.
Thank you. That's the only question I had.
All right. Nothing else? I make a motion to approve the language update in the government, public facilities, uses, and definitions. Specifically, where am I looking at it here? It's not that. You had the actual, that is the,
Statement of approval.
almighty, yeah, statement of approval.
Right.
Oh, that was from,
To amend
chapter 40.
chapter 40.
okay. Make a motion to amend Chapter 40, Article 8, Section 40 to 72 and 548. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thanks, Miles.
Yes, sir. Happy to see you
I
all.
feel like that was something I'd seen before. Did I just approve this?
Yes,
you-
but Mayor, can you go back to that slide, Miles?
Just need to do a land use
You
plan
need to use a
consistency.
land use.
And you can make it consistent with the goals.
Give me something that I can look at.
Just
I-
the
it wasn't
approval,
on there,
the
but I-
approval statement,
All right.
statement of approval.
Yeah, that looked very familiar. Okay, let me
Yes.
try that again.
Okay.
That's why I felt like I was looking at the same thing, because I was. Make a motion to amend Chapter 40, Article 8, Section 40 to 72 and 548 to adjust the definition and use of government public facilities in the town of Carolina Beach. It's consistent with the goals and objectives of the adopted land use plan and other long-range plans. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thanks again, Miles, for your patience with this senile mayor. All right, last up. No opposition to that?
Enjoy middle school.
Stickers, no candy.
Behave when you're over
Good
there.
luck getting your diploma. It takes a while for these things, guys. All right, Jeremy.
All right, sir. This was an item that was directed by town council to staff to look at stop signs specifically. There was 3 intersections in the Seagrove community area. One was Searay, Spot, and Croker. These are currently have 2-way stop signs on them, and they're all through streets going from Searay, Spot, and Croker. The stop signs are facing on North Carolina, so if that is the street that you're having to stop on, going through these intersections. One of the concerns that we heard from the citizens was because of the multi-use path coming out the end of North Carolina, and bikers just coming down and going a high rate of speed in North Carolina, not following any traffic laws or stop signs and just shooting right through. And then you'd have cars going through the intersections, and the possibility of conflicts.
That's all Gigi. I want you to know that's all Gigi. This is our
Jeremy,
GIS
get all that.
GIS department.
Sorry, go ahead.
She's awesome.
No,
Cute.
wherever I need to give credit. So staff would recommend to help solve these issues is to switch the stop signs around. So where you are stopping on Croker, Spot, and Sea Ray, and North Carolina becomes the through street to Pinfish, where Pinfish is a four-way stop sign here, intersection. Currently, the ordinance would need to be adopted to address stop signs at these three intersections, because right now, if you read the ordinance, there's no reference to those streets. So right now, if you went by code, there would be no stop signs.
Jeremy, is that because Pinfish has a larger right-of-way, or is that related to it at all?
It is not. I know kind of the Seagrove community starts here at Pinfish,
Okay.
but when these roads were first paved for Seagrove, there was just, they put a stoplight at Pinfish. But Pinfish is a 50-foot right-of-way, like the other streets in this area. We reviewed this recommendation to the Wilmington MPO for the traffic engineers. They agreed with it. They really try to get away from stop signs. As you heard from the gentleman earlier, you know, you can't have too many stop signs, and when you have every intersection as a four-way, you know, they frequently are violated if unwarranted. It is an inconvenience to the traveling motorists having to start stop, and they should only be used when there is really a need. When, you know, accident data is driven and supports it, or if it's a traffic counts for a high motorist intersection. But you know, because if they're, you know, motorists, you know, they really stop obeying. Like, you know, if you have to stop at every intersection, you just start rolling eventually. Or if you feel like, well, if they have to stop, maybe I don't have to, because I know they're going to stop. So there is some, and it doesn't really, data has shown that it do not regulate speed. It actually increases speed between stop signs as people are trying to make up that time because they know they have to slow down or stop. So in the middle of the block, it actually, you have speeds that are a little bit more concern of a safety issue. That's the kind of the traffic engineer side of things from their studies. Before you use the ordinance that staff recommends for the intersections to switch to stop signs, so North Carolina is the through street, and I'll answer any questions that you may have.
I'll hold off on those since we're still in public hearing. I'll make a motion to open for public hearing. All those in favor? Aye.
Lynn Conto, 807 North Carolina Avenue. Good evening, Mayor and Council, staff. Okay, so of all the solutions, we had three solutions with Jeremy. One, leave it the status quo. Okay? Two, take out the stop signs that are going east-west and only have them going north-south. Three, put forward, or take out east-west at Sea Ray and at Croker and add north-south at all three stop signs. Leave east-west at North Carolina. So here's the issue, and I'm gonna come over here just for a second. This is our neighborhood. This is our pool. This is where people walk. We have sidewalks, right? These are all dead ends. That's a dead end, that's a dead end, that's a dead end, right? So taking out this, all it does is, if you remember 2 years ago when Tennessee had no stop signs, all people did was use Tennessee as a thoroughfare. Now our neighborhood is gonna become that thoroughfare, and it's gonna be too late to stop. So I'd rather leave it the status quo, and I've been asking for these stop signs for 5 months, 6 months. I'd rather leave it the status quo than pull all the east-west stop signs, because all you're gonna do is encourage traffic to come over on Pinfish and cut up North Carolina. Because what happens is whenever Lake Park is crowded, everybody tries to cut through. They think there's a shortcut somehow, and they're speeding in and out of our neighborhood all the time, trying to get back over to Dow Road, but they can't get to Dow Road from there. They have to go to Ocean, right? So I'd rather you just put dead-end signs. I'd rather you put something, but please do not take our east-west stop signs. Otherwise, all my efforts of trying to get the stop signs to save the pedestrians and the bike people will be for naught, because our neighborhood will be devastated by additional traffic that we don't need. We were a quiet little community, 106 homes. I asked our neighborhood, what do you want to do? 19 people wanted to remove the east-west stop signs at Croker and at Seaway, and then put north-south all the way down in an effort to make sure that no kids got hurt. 11 people wanted to leave the status quo, and only one person actually wanted to remove all the east-west stop signs and have north-south. I don't want to have a little kid's blood on my hands, but at the same time, I want quiet enjoyment of my neighborhood, and I don't need any more traffic. If you pull those stop signs, all you're doing is diverting traffic into our neighborhood, in front of our pool, etc. We already have the bike path. That is enough traffic, guys. Please be considerate of us. We're high taxpayers in the community, and we appreciate your consideration.
Lynn, just a question, so help me be a little more clear. What is it you were originally asking
I
for?
wanted four-way stops.
Four-way stops.
And then the emergency vehicles, the fire department said, Chief and his assistant said that it's way too difficult to get, I don't know how many ton vehicles they are, but megaton vehicles to stop when they're just doing routine travel throughout the community. That's why they don't want four-way stop signs. But I can tell you, the community, the comments were like, if they're concerned about emergency vehicles, are they planning on removing all the other four-way stop signs that are in Carolina Beach?
They're everywhere in Wilmington Beach.
Exactly. I would rather see a four-way stop as I have seen people speeding down Kroger, but would agree that option 3, which is add 3 east, north, south, and take away only 2 of them. And then another one says, why not change 1 or all 3 of the other four-way stops in CB and make Kroger, Spot, and Seaway four-way? At least Spot and Seaway because of the pool, and it's the center of our community. Anyway, I would just ask that please do not take out our east-west stop.
So,
Jeremy, is this is this graphic showing the proposed changes that you just listed?
That is staff's recommendation.
Okay, can you show me the can you show me the graphic that has the existing?
Yes, let me get back
Thank
to
you.
that.
okay, so you're saying,
Here's the existing.
okay.
Okay, so explain to us what we're looking at. You got a red, they got a,
So the 3 streets are Croker, Spot, and Seaway. So there's the stop
That's the only
is
3 in the whole Wilmington Beach area. that don't
Where are
have
the stop
four-way
signs
stops.
currently?
Stop signs are
just
on
at the
the
reds.
pole.
So the red is where you,
Red, I'm sorry.
if you're traveling,
Can only
you have
hear
to
one
stop.
person. Huh?
Right. So the east-west are traveling down North Carolina, you have to
Okay.
stop.
The blue are thoroughs.
So you want to leave it like it is now, is what you're saying?
Well, if my options are pull the east-west, yeah, absolutely. We
Well-
fought hard to keep those in there so that we didn't become the new Tennessee. That makes no
But
sense.
you won't be, because that means there's still, if they're coming east on Pinfish, Pinfish is gonna be a
just leave it alone.
four-way, and it's a four-way all the way to Lake Park.
But it's
That's
not it's not a four-way coming up through, that's why they'll find it. just
So,
like people found Tennessee.
Lynn, if I'm hearing you correctly, your original request was to make everything four-way stops. And Jeremy, you came back and said between the fire chief and other planning and traffic, 4 ways everywhere is too much.
That's staff's recommendation.
Right, so you want to flip it and go the other direction, and now our residents are telling us if that's the best you got, just leave it
Leave it
alone.
alone. Is
Right.
that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's
I'm good
the
with
least
leaving it alone.
attractive
Well,
option.
let's just leave it alone
Or
then.
at least we're used to.
Let me,
We don't have to change it just because it didn't go the way.
We don't, but we actually need to adopt it in our ordinance.
Adopt what? That our plan is, we just want to leave it alone?
Those 3 streets were
There should
ignored
be
in
a
the
no
ordinance.
action.
There's nothing in our ordinance that shows that there's stop signs in that area, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's.
Correct. So we do need to
listed it.
address it. Either way you want to go, we need to adopt it in the ordinance.
So can you come up, for me, I would say leave it alone. Can you come up with an ordinance that describes that?
We
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
Awesome.
which you don't have to propose to us now. Yeah, I make a motion to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Can you draft one up for us then?
Thank you,
An
Jeremy.
ordinance?
To,
Thanks, Jeremy.
for the existing signage, yes.
Right, yeah.
In case it comes up again. Okay, non-agenda.
Yes, I have one.
Beat him to the punch.
This is our October meeting.
Glad to get it.
This is the last opportunity we're going to have to wish Joe Dan Garza
Oh.
blessed marital nuptials.
I thought it was
You
my
and Kayla.
birthday's this month too, man.
No, I could care less
birthday's
about your
sweet.
birthday.
Oh,
I
that's
just
not
want to
good.
wish you
List.
all the best. Between now and our next meeting, you're going to get married, and we
Yes.
just wish you all the
That's-
best. And
that's a
Caitlin.
good point.
So,
Thank you.
congratulations and thank you.
It's very compassionate of you.
Mostly I'm working for
Congratulations, Joe
Caitlin's
Dan.
vote, so that's, I just brought that up.
And you will not be
I won't
at our
be
next
work-
meeting.
Yeah, I won't be at the workshop, or I don't think I will be also at the town council meeting.
Right now.
Are you leaving your,
I'm looking over notes
Are
for
you-
the workshop.
are you leaving with our
No
town
phone, no
clerk,
laptop.
contact information
Nope,
for you? Wait.
nothing. If I die, you won't know until my parents know. No phone, no laptop, no residence, no work.
Man, I'm nodding my head up and, yeah. way to
First
go.
time ever.
Steve, anything else?
That's the only non-agenda
Yeah.
item I had.
Thanks, Steve.
No, I was
think you
just
got
gonna,
revoked,
that was
but
a lot
thanks.
of compassion, Steve, that's all.
Well, Joseph Whitley suggested I keep my calmer, nicer self at the forefront.
His warm and fuzzy.
Tom's got one. Tom?
Yeah, I do have one. It's just a reminder of anybody out there in the internet and in the room. Tomorrow, the Brunswick power plant will be doing their testing, and it's at full volume for 3 minutes. And 3 minutes will sound real long when it's that loud. So just be aware, there's nothing to be worried about. It's just a regular test.
And it's between 10 and 11.
10 and 11.
Okay.
3 minutes.
Further clarity.
And it will be
Steve
loud.
asked if you had your iodine pills. Do y'all remember that?
You do not have to
I,
eat your
I,
iodine
I have
pills.
my idea.
In my
iodine
survival
pills.
kit.
I know where they are.
We don't give those out anymore?
Yes, they
As a
still
budget
do.
cut?
I don't know.
They will come back when the expiration
I don't think
date
it
gets
probably
closer
works,
for those
but-
pills they gave out last time.
Can hide under your desk.
I'm going down, I'm not gonna go down.
I actually have no non-agenda items tonight.
I don't either. I've got them
got one.
answered during the manager's update. No?
Wait, we got
So-
one from legal.
Oh,
Yeah, gotta listen
Sorry.
to that.
The contract for the 3 Carolina Beach Avenue South, we have an amendment that needs to take place. It doesn't change any of the terms other than listing an additional seller. So there was an individual named Judy R. Shrim who owned a 12.5% interest. Her attorney and Mr. Barnes have been negotiating. They have come to some terms, so I need y'all to approve the amendment to the offer to purchase and contract to include that Judy R. Shrim owns a 12.5% interest in the property.
Right now.
So moved.
So moved. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Make a motion to go into closed session to discuss a real estate, attorney-client, and a personnel matter in accordance with North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11 A 3, 5, and 6. Need a breath. The matters being discussed include Town of Carolina Beach versus Carolina Freeman LLC, New Hanover County 18 CVS 3151. Town of Carolina Beach versus B&F Enterprises LLC, New Hanover County 18 CVS 3152. Town of Carolina Beach versus DRDK LLC, New Hanover County 18 CVS 3153. Town of Carolina Beach versus Freeman Beach LLC 18 CVS 314. The properties in the closed session include 316 Cape Fear Boulevard, Carolina Beach, and 1101 North Lake Park Boulevard, Carolina Beach. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes.